Scary telling.
I couldn't shake the feeling of unease as my family welcomed a new pet into our home. A white cat with piercing blue eyes named Icy. My siblings were overjoyed, but I couldn't help but feel that something was off about her. She didn't seem like a typical house cat to me. As the days passed, strange things began to happen around the house. Doors would scratch in the middle of the night, and shadows would dart across the walls. I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that Icy was at the center of it all. Despite my reservations, my family quickly became obsessed with the new pet. My sister spent nearly $100 on various cat toys, and my brother tried to teach Icy tricks. But the cat seemed to have no interest in playing with them. Whenever they approached her, she would flinch and hiss before running away. Icy never looked into their eyes, never seemed to connect with them in any way. My sister would often complain that she doesn't love us, but my family continued to shower the cat with attention and affection, hoping that she would warm up to them eventually. One evening, I heard my brother yell from the living room. When I went to investigate, I found him holding Icy by the shoulders, the same way he used to hold me when we were kids. I winced at the sight of the cat struggling to escape. Eventually, she looked into my brother's eyes for a moment before darting away. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened between my brother and Icy. It seemed like the cat was scared of him, but I couldn't figure out why. As the days went by, the scratching at doors and shadows in the night became more frequent. I started to suspect that Icy was somehow involved, but I didn't know how or why. I tried to tell my family, but they dismissed my concerns as paranoia. Then, one morning, I woke up to a horrific sight. My family members were all dead, their bodies covered in blood. And standing over them was Icy, with her white fur stained red. It was clear that the cat had been involved in their deaths, but I couldn't fathom how or why. The police arrived on the scene and took Icy into custody, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. As I sat in shock, trying to process what had happened, I realized that Icy was no ordinary cat. There was something sinister about her, something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And I knew that I needed to find out what it was before it was too late. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My family members, the people I loved most in the world, were dead. And standing over them, covered in their blood, was Icy, the white cat that had come into our home just a few days ago. My mind was racing as I tried to make sense of what had happened. How had Icy gotten out of her cage? Had she killed my family members? And if so, why? I couldn't understand how a simple house cat could be capable of such violence. The police arrived on the scene, and I could see the shock and horror in their eyes as they looked at the gruesome scene. They quickly took Icy into custody, and I watched as they put her in a carrier and took her away. As I sat in the living room, trying to process the events of the morning, the reality of what had happened started to sink in. My family members were dead, and I was the only one left. I didn't know how I was going to cope with the loss, but I knew that I needed to figure out what had happened to them. Over the next few days, the police conducted their investigation. They questioned me and the neighbors, trying to piece together the events leading up to the murders. But despite their best efforts, they couldn't find any evidence to suggest that anyone had been in the house besides my family members and Icy. I couldn't help but feel that there was something they were missing. I had a nagging feeling that Icy was somehow involved, but I couldn't prove it. Every time I tried to bring it up to the police, they dismissed it as paranoia. I couldn't stop thinking about Icy, the white cat that had seemed so innocent and harmless just a few days ago. Had she really been capable of killing my family members? And if so, why had she done it? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was something off about Icy. She had never seemed like a typical house cat to me, and there had been moments when she had seemed scared of my family members. But I couldn't figure out what it all meant. One day, as I was going through my family members' things, I came across a journal entry written by my sibling. In it, they described their belief that Icy was possessed by an evil spirit that was driving her to kill. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. There was no other explanation for how a simple house cat could be capable of such violence. I started to research the idea of demonic possession, trying to understand what could have happened to Icy. As the days turned into weeks, I became more and more convinced that there was something dark and sinister at play. And I knew that I needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. As I delved deeper into the mystery surrounding Icy, I began to uncover dark secrets about my family's past. I discovered that they had been involved in a secret society that practiced dark rituals and worshipped an ancient demon. I couldn't believe what I was finding. My family, the people I had known my whole life, had been involved in something so sinister. The more I learned about the secret society, the more I started to believe that Icy had been a pawn in their game. She had been used in a ritual to summon the demon, and it seemed like the demon had possessed her as a result. I couldn't help but feel like my family's involvement in the secret society had led to their deaths. As I continued to investigate, I found evidence that suggested that the demon was still at large. There were reports of strange occurrences around town, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Icy was somehow connected to them. Despite my best efforts to uncover the truth, the police were no closer to solving the case. They had no leads, no suspects, and no explanation for what had happened to my family. I knew that I needed to take matters into my own hands if I was going to find out what had really happened. One night, I decided to confront Icy. I went to the animal shelter where she was being held and demanded to see her. The staff were hesitant at first, but I convinced them to let me in. As soon as I saw Icy, I knew that there was something different about her. Her eyes seemed to glow in the dim light, and I could feel a sense of unease radiating from her. I approached her cage, and she stared at me with her piercing blue eyes. For a moment, I felt like she was trying to communicate with me. Then, suddenly, she hissed and darted away, as if sensing my intentions. I couldn't help but wonder what was going on inside her head. Was she really possessed by a demon? And if so, was there any way to exorcise it from her? As I left the animal shelter that night, I knew that I had a long road ahead of me. I needed to uncover the truth about the secret society and the demon they had summoned. And I needed to find a way to save Icy from the demon's clutches before it was too late. As I continued to investigate the mystery surrounding Icy, I began to believe more and more in the theory that she was possessed by a demonic entity. I couldn't explain the strange occurrences that had been happening around town or the way that Icy seemed to radiate a sense of unease. I started to research the idea of demonic possession, trying to find any information that could help me save Icy. I learned about exorcism rituals and different ways to banish demons from a possessed person or animal. But I knew that I needed to be careful. If I made a mistake, I could end up unleashing something even more sinister. Despite my reservations, I knew that I had to try. I couldn't stand the thought of Icy being under the control of a demon, and I was willing to risk anything to save her. One night, I snuck into the animal shelter where Icy was being held. I had brought with me a book on exorcism rituals, hoping to find something that could help me banish the demon from her body. I approached Icy's cage, and she looked at me with her piercing blue eyes. I could see a sense of recognition in them, as if she knew that I was there to help her. I began to recite the exorcism ritual, following the instructions in the book as closely as possible. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Icy remained motionless, staring at me with her eyes. But then, suddenly, she began to convulse. Her body writhed and twisted, as if she was in the grip of some unseen force. I continued to recite the ritual, trying to banish the demon from her body. I could see a sense of struggle in Icy's eyes, as if she was fighting against the demon's control. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Icy's body went limp. The demon had been banished from her body, and she was free once again. As I looked at her, I could see a sense of relief in her eyes. She nuzzled against my hand, as if thanking me for freeing her from the demon's control. I knew that I had done the right thing. Icy was free from the demon's control, and I had saved her from a fate worse than death. But I also knew that my work wasn't done. I still had to uncover the truth about the secret society and the demon they had summoned. As I left the animal shelter that night, I knew that I had a long road ahead of me. But I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. And I knew that I had Icy by my side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I continued my investigation into the secret society and the demon they had summoned, I knew that I was getting closer to the truth. I had uncovered evidence of their dark rituals and their involvement in the deaths of my family members. But I still didn't know how to stop them from summoning the demon again. I knew that I had to act fast. The next ritual was scheduled for the upcoming full moon, and I couldn't let them summon the demon again. I had to find a way to stop them, no matter the cost. I spent the days leading up to the full moon preparing for the final showdown. I gathered as much information as I could about the ritual and the members of the secret society. I knew that I couldn't take them all alone, so I recruited a few trusted friends to help me. On the night of the full moon, we set out to stop the secret society. We made our way to the abandoned warehouse where the ritual was set to take place, armed with everything we could carry. As we approached the warehouse, we could hear the sounds of chanting and the smell of incense. We knew that we had to act fast if we were going to stop them. We burst into the warehouse, interrupting the ritual. The members of the secret society were shocked to see us, but they quickly recovered and attacked us. We fought back with everything we had. We were outnumbered, but we were determined to stop them from summoning the demon. As the battle raged on, I caught sight of the demon. It was a terrifying sight, with glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws. But I knew that I couldn't let it win. I made my way towards the demon, my heart racing. I knew that I had to banish it back to the underworld, no matter the cost. I recited the same exorcism ritual that I had used on Icy, hoping that it would work on the demon as well. I could feel the demon's power pushing against me, but I refused to back down. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the demon was banished back to the underworld. The members of the secret society were defeated, and I knew that I had saved the town from a fate worse than death. As I looked around at the aftermath of the battle, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. I had finally uncovered the truth about the secret society and the demon they had summoned. And I had saved Icy, the white cat that had been possessed by the demon, from a fate worse than death. As we left the warehouse, I knew that my life would never be the same again. I had been through a harrowing experience, but I had come out on the other side stronger than ever before. And as I looked down at Icy, who was nuzzled against my leg, I knew that I had a loyal friend by my side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.